you have a federal liability and responsibility to disclose what you're doing with that information and how you keep it and store it. Most people don't know that. They say, well, but the marketing guru on LinkedIn told me I need to have a newsletter, and so I'm going to have a newsletter. Well, if you have a newsletter, you have to have a privacy.
Hi there, and welcome back to Life is Legal, where we unpack the laws that sneak into everyday life without the Latin, the lecture, or the stodgy lawyer vibe. I'm your host, Brooke Hardie, lawyer, legal translator, and part-time backup dancer for Beyonce. Oh, we have all seen them. Some of us have them, okay? It's those little tiny links at the bottom of a website that say privacy policy. And you click on them and you are immediately taken to the longest and most boring death scroll of what looks like a combination of Greek, Latin, and Old English or something, okay? And it talks about cookies and privacy policies and third-party websites and all the things. And more often than not, the text is cut and pasted from some other website that has nothing to do with this website, okay? But here's the thing. There are federal laws that you have to comply with if you have a website form that collects people's information, okay? Or if you're inputting information into someone else's site, it has to be protected. Listen, some of the legal topics we're going to talk about on this podcast are going to taste a little more like a spoonful of medicine than sugar. And this may be one of those times. But the good news is we have Cari Kaufman here to help us out. If you have a website or if you go on a website, this episode is for you. Cari is a fractional chief storytelling officer. How fun is that at a cocktail party? What do you do for a living? Lawyer? Oh, what do you do? I'm a chief storytelling officer. It was so fun. She helps solopreneurs and micro businesses build brands that don't just look good. They hack through all the marketing noise and tell unforgettable stories that make people's service or product magnetic and memorable. Her company, Storyteller Wordsmith, is Life is Legal's strategic partner. And so I can personally tell you that Cari is obsessed with making sure her clients' legal foundations are as strong as the creative side to what they do. She's an expert in online privacy policies, proper image licensing, and data collection done right, aka legal. So, welcome, Cari.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I want to kind of set the stage for our listeners and clarify what you and I are going to be talking about today, because when we're talking about, as you've called them, the throwaway pages that aren't really throwaway, we've usually got the privacy policy page, right? And the terms and conditions page. The privacy policy page, right, like we're going to talk about, protects the user's privacy. You know, stuff like data collection, talks about storage of their information or whether their information can be sold, that sort of thing. Whereas the T&C, or terms and conditions pages, protects the business's legal rights, right? And discusses things like return policies or disclaimers or what happens if there's a dispute, that sort of thing. And today, we're going to be discussing the privacy policy side, the consumer's privacy rights side of things. So, Cari, what is the purpose of a privacy policy and why do we all treat it like an afterthought?
That's a great question. So you wrapped it up really beautifully. The purpose of the privacy policy page, and just so you know, so our listeners know, there are typically 4 categories of legalese that you would have at the bottom of your website, or that you should have on your website. You should have a cookie policy, and we'll talk a little bit in terms of privacy policy, why cookie policies matter. You should have a privacy policy. Most sites have a disclaimer, or should have a disclaimer. And then you have your terms and conditions. And disclaimer and terms and conditions can generally live in the same place, but those are kind of the 4 categories of information, of legalese, that we like to make sure are on every site, right? People, over the last several years doing Storyteller Wordsmith, we have built, I think we added them up, over 200 websites. The number of times that we have had to have conversations with clients about, yeah, no, you actually need these other pages, these terms and conditions pages, these other pages on your site. It isn't just like, even if you have just a 1-page site, you need a policy page. So we have those conversations all the time. And I think they're afterthoughts because most of the time they're hidden in the footer. They're actually literally the fine print at the bottom of the page. Most people don't understand them or why they need them. Somebody might have told them at some point that they need those things, and so they just go to like Rocket Lawyer or
website,
their favorite website, copy and paste it over. So what ends up happening is like, it's just an afterthought, if it's even a thought at all. So we run into this a lot with our do-it-yourself clients that just come to us for coaching. They build their site and they come to us and ask, can you tell me what I did wrong? 99% of the time, the very first thing I say is, you don't have policy pages. Like, that's the number one thing you did wrong. It's a super easy fix, but it's so important.
Why is it so important?
Have privacy policy. So it protects the business owner, right? So we live in a litigious society. You are not protected if, for example, you don't have a privacy policy, but you have a form on your website, even a little form that just takes an email. You are collecting private information, PII, right? So personally identifiable information. You're collecting that. And if you keep an email list someplace, you are storing that. So you have a federal liability and responsibility to disclose what you're doing with that information and how you keep it and store it. And most people don't know that. They say, well, but the marketing guru on LinkedIn told me I need to have a newsletter, and so I'm going to have a newsletter. Well, if you have a newsletter, you have to have a privacy policy. So it becomes very important because you are liable to anyone who lands on your site to tell them what you're doing with their information. And if you don't do it, and there are people out there, there are actually bots out there that are crawling websites looking for that information just so that they can like get money from people when they don't have it. So it's a way of protecting you and your business, even if you're not a business, if you're just a person that's running a blog. It's a way of protecting you and your business against legal issues down the road.
So take that bot example that you talked about. So what would a person's privacy policy page need to have if we know those bots are out there and crawling into websites, and getting email addresses that we've collected? And so you should have something on your privacy policy page saying that may happen, or...
Yeah. So yes, and yes, and yes. Well, most of the time what those bots are doing is they're actually looking for people to sue. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for people who don't have this information on their site. They're scraping sites looking for, okay, well, they do collect information. They don't have privacy policy. I can actually squeeze them for cash is what they're looking for, right?
Wow.
Now, in your privacy policy pages, it tells more. It doesn't just tell your readers what you're doing with the information that they actively input into your site. Privacy policy also deals with whether or not you're collecting any third-party data. So if you have Google Analytics, if you have Google Search Console, if you have the Meta Pixel on your site, if you have any sort of tracking on your site at all, your site is collecting information on the people who visit your site, whether you think it is or not. It's doing it all in the background. So
what kind of information? Like about their IP address or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So your IP, they collect your IP address. Some can collect location information, like where they're from, where that IP address is hitting. It can collect if you've got Google Analytics on your site or Google Search Console. It can collect search data, like what did they put in the search bar to get to your site? Where did they come from? What's their traffic pattern or behavior pattern on your site? All of those like behavioral signals that we as marketers absolutely adore because it tells us what is hitting and what's not. All of those are getting stored in a third-party software. So you are using a third party, whether you think you are or not. They're getting stored in a third-party software. And while it might not be collecting their name or their actual physical address, it's still collecting information on them. So you, again, have to tell people, hey, I do have these things turned on my website. And so when you come to this website, you're agreeing to allow me to collect that information. Even if you have like embedded YouTubes on your site. So maybe you don't have Google Search Console or Analytics, but you have embedded YouTube videos, or you have your Instagram feed on your site. Both of those third-party sites collect information on who is clicking on them. So, and they do that so that they can report analytics back. It's not like some nefarious plot to get your information, but that's where that information is going to a third party. So it's very important that you know what other websites you got activated, and then like the third party people that you've got activated on your site, what other tools are connected to your site, and what kind of information those tools are collecting so that you can disclose that to your audience.
Okay, this all sounds really complicated. I won't lie. So the normal average Joe or Joelle, where do they go? How do you figure out what to put in your own privacy policy based on what your contact form looks like or what you're embedding, or how does the normal person go about protecting themselves without hiring a lawyer that charges $400 an hour to do it for them?
It's a great question because it's not easy to do. And the fun part of anything legal is that there are 51 states and all of them have different requirements. And heaven forbid, you're actually also talking to an international audience because the EU and GDPR and Canada all have different privacy policy reporting requirements. The truth is, if you are just an average Joe or Joelle and you don't know jack about legal stuff, you need help. So you either need to pay the $400 to a lawyer, which absolutely isn't necessary, or you need to use a tool that will help you. We personally use Termageddon as our tool of choice because, one, it takes you through the questionnaire of like it does basically a discovery of what is on your site, what do you have activated, what are you using, and it asks you like questions in a normal, everyday language that most people can understand. And the whole time it's educating you on why do I need this? I need this information because So Termageddon is a great resource. And the beauty of it is once you have it installed on your website, it updates your privacy policy pages as state and international policy changes are made. So it keeps your policy page up to date. So you don't really ever have to worry about it. We still think it's a good idea to annually audit those things and just make sure. But it's a really great tool. It's not expensive. It costs $150 so a year, and it makes so much sense to just have it covered under one big umbrella. There are other tools out there that do something similar. Termageddon is obviously our favorite.
Okay. And what are those? What are the Termageddons? What's the generic name for those types of companies? Just the legal bird seed generators?
Something
That's
a good question. Anything like if you look for data policy software, that'll generally catch you. You can also look at user-centric, which is a cookie policy generator that's embedded in Termageddon. You could look up, cookie policy generator. Usually you're going to get pretty close to this. A lot of these software companies offer packages of all of them in one, such as Termageddon. So Termageddon covers all of your things, your disclaimer, your privacy policy. It helps you generate your terms and conditions pages, which are so important. We can talk about those at a later time, but it does all of those things at once.
Okay. So to kind of summarize, so I have an online business. I sell candles. Technically, I will ship to, anybody in the world, say. And so Termageddon or a similar type of service will take me through ad nauseum. Who do you sell to? What does your site look like? What do you say on your site? What information do you collect? All of it. And then bada bing, it generates my terms and conditions, my privacy page, my disclaimer, all of that. And it keeps it up for you if you continue to pay the annual fee. Sounds pretty good. Okay. So you mentioned cookies. What the heck with the cookies? Why? Okay. What and why and what? Go.
Okay. So cookies. Cookies are not the chocolate chip variety, sadly. Yeah. They are not anything you like to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a great question. I would love to Google. Well, I need to Google that. I would love to understand the etymology behind why did you name it a cookie? Maybe because it's just a little bite of information. I'm going to go with that. Maybe that's where some super techie guy said it's a little bite of information. So that's cookie. I don't know.
Cookie. Okay.
And now I want to go look at fighting the urge to go look it up right now. So cookies are basically signals is really all a cookie is, right? It's a signal to the website and to any analytics tracking tools, ads tracking tools on the site or on the place where you came from. So also keep that in mind. Cookies are everywhere. Everybody got cookies. Everybody got cookies. So they are little bits of information that signal to the little robot minions in the background where you came from, what you're doing, who you are, without collecting necessarily personal identifiable information. Now, I say that because I say necessarily because you can enable cookies to actually track your personal IP, which is also an identifiable piece of information across everywhere you visit the internet. So I know a couple of years ago, it's kind of fallen off now, but a couple of years ago, there was a big push to eliminate third-party cookies altogether. And that's why we all of a sudden all of our websites had to suddenly have cookie policy, because now you have to disclose that you collect cookies and what you do with them.
So let me stop you right there. So the personally identifiable information, contrast that with cookie information. How are they different?
Typically, when we think about PII, we're thinking of your name, your email address, your physical address, things that are only identifiable, only can be attached to you. Like when that information is put in a bucket together. So when you put my name, you put Cari Kaufman in a bucket with my birth date, with my zip code, then that serves to personally identify me as Cari Kaufman. So wherever I go, that signal is carried along, right? It's also very much the information that is HIPAA protected. PII is HIPAA protected when you're on like a healthcare website or whatnot. So that's personally identifiable information. Now, whether your IP address counts as PII is a greatly debated topic. Those of us who work in the tech industry know that your IP address is personal and unique, and it is a unique identifier. It does change depending on where you are in
Right.
the world and all of that. You can mask it. It's not your name. But personally, I feel that your IP address is a personally identifiable piece of information, but that is not what the law says. So cookies grab information about behaviors, which could be seen as not unique to a single person, right? So cookies grab information. They use your IP address to track you over multiple sites. That's why you can search for compression socks over here, and then all of a sudden on this website and then you look up a recipe that has 11 jillion ads on it, and they're all for compression socks, right? That's why that can happen, is because third parties collect that information and they track you across the sites that you're visiting.
Which kind of illustrates why these laws are so important to have in place and to comply with, is because this stuff that we're doing with this information that we're allowed to do, but have to disclose it to you so that you can make the choice as to whether you want to move forward, clicking around on that website or not, because it impacts your day-to-day life. It impacts what you read, what you see, what you ultimately might think about something. I mean, I'm sure it starts sending different types of news stories or, information that may be one-sided or not, or, it really does start shaping the way we might view the world.
100%. And this is a total sidebar, but this is one of the reasons why you cannot. I think it's one of the reasons why our culture, while we are so connected via the internet, we are actually more divided than ever before, because the algorithms that are out there are very different from person to person. They are shaped by your desires and your signals, right? So what you think everybody else is seeing, news stories, the way things are told, that even the clips that you're seeing, is not what everybody else is seeing. So it's very important to know that cookies do shape the world and how you see it, because it shapes the information you're getting. Now, what I will say, and I may be cutting you off, but what I will say is that you have agency in that. You have choice. Most of us don't choose to make that choice, because it requires a little bit of intention and taking a minute. But all websites that are compliant, because not all websites are, but all websites that are compliant are required to disclose that they are collecting cookies, and they're required to allow you to opt out of that collection. So when you get that little pop-up, when you show up on a website that says, here's cookies, do you consent or not consent? Do you agree to the cookies? Like, usually you have three choices. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you not consent, or do you want to customize?
Right.
And my husband is the only person in the world I've ever seen actually customize his cookies.
Customizing your cookies. That phrase
Customize
alone.
the cookies.
Be
We
a
like the
soundbite.
chocolate chip with a little coconut flash, right? Right. But because turning off cookies does disable some things on the website. Like, yeah, it usually will disable any video embeds that are on the website or social media embeds that are on the website, because cookies are what are used to generate those things, right? So
it may impact your experience on that website.
Yes, if you opt out of all of them, it may impact your experience. If you choose to customize, you can turn on only the things that are functional cookies, so the things that you have to have in order to experience the website as it was meant to be. You can turn off everything else, but that takes an extra, step
and knowing
understanding
what
you're doing in order to actually get there.
So what do you do when those pop-ups happen?
I typically, so I'm a marketer, and I know what marketers use cookies for. And I'm also a really compassionate person, and I feel for the marketers who don't get the cookies that they need. So I usually, much to my husband's chagrin, will opt into cookies, because I'm like, I know what I need, and I need for you to accept the cookies, because it really does help me do my job better.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're biased. Yeah. You're a tough person to ask on that. But yeah, I think people just blow through that. And then, they're like, you want to limit your cookies? I'm like, limit? First of all, what's my cookie? How do I limit it?
What am I limiting?
But there's really not a ton of downside, is there, to opting out of the cookies? And maybe you don't get the embedded YouTube thing or whatever, but it just, I don't know. Does it even matter though? I mean, we're just so inundated. It's like, if I say no to the cookies, is that really going to affect my algorithm in a positive way?
It might actually affect it in a positive way. But at the end of the day, does it matter if you opt out of the cookies? No. It doesn't. What it will mean is that you will have to take an active role in curating your algorithm, which actually is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. It does make it a little bit harder. Like, if you're saving information, or you want to come back to the information, or you really like to go to the same website multiple times or whatnot and see the same thing, that experience will be a little bit different. That'll be impacted. But ultimately, if you opt out of cookies, it's not going to, the internet is not going to fall down. Marketers will still have jobs, because you have already clicked the terms and agreements on the YouTube video that you watched, and on your Facebook, on the Facebook ad. And newsflash, in those terms and agreements, you agreed to be tracked. So there will already be some tracking that's happening across the across the interwebs, but declining cookies on a single website is not going to be a problem. Now, what I will say, here's a little, hey, most people, when you click the little X to say, I'm not going to make a decision, you have made a decision. Typically, that decision is you have accepted all the cookies on the website. That is I feel like it's shady. Personally, it's not something I love. I feel like if you're going to disclose, and don't trick them into thinking that if they don't make a decision, they have said no. You can choose as a website designer or owner to make that little X be agreement, or you can make that little X be I'm opting out. 99% of people make that X be agreement. And so when you just close out of that question, that little form, you're typically agreeing to.
Okay. Is there some sort of setting on the computer or on your cloud? I mean, somewhere where you can go, I'm opting out of everything that I click on when I'm on the internet?
It depends on what type of computer you're on. Apple products typically have a setting where you can you can blanket opt out of cookies. For sure on your cell phone, like your iPhone, you can blanket opt out of any cookies on your iPhone. So yes, there are settings that you can just say, I don't want to think about this, whatever. It also doesn't mean you won't get served the little form when you land on a website, like, because they're required to show you that form, whether you have said yes or no on your phone.
Okay.
Anyway.
So don't think that it's not working if you get the cookies form.
Exactly.
Or yes. Whatever. Okay. Okay, cool. Are there any best practices that you've told people or that you live by as you navigate the internet these days in terms of not, oversharing stuff that we don't need to be? Or are you just kind of giving in like I have and said, well, I'm an open book. You know what? That ship has sailed. I'm in the system.
Well, Alex likes to say, my business partner likes to say that we already gave all of our privacy and we gave all our personal details anyway. So might as well just make the best of it. I think the best practice that I like to share with people the most is just education. Like, know what you're agreeing to. Know, especially if you're on a site, like, I'm the world's worst at like clicking the terms and agreement box at the bottom of any form and never reading the terms and agreement. Like, I'm the world's worst at it. But if you're on a site and you're giving them your information, you want to know what are they doing with that information? Because like a lot of times in terms and conditions, it's buried in there, but it's telling you, hey, we sell your stuff to third parties. We share your information with all these other people. So I think the biggest, if I were to give someone advice, is just simply to be aware that when you're checking those boxes or when you're on a website, you are, by nature of being present, giving them permission to collect your data and do with it whatever they want to, unless you specifically specify, I don't want you to share this with someone else. I don't want you to do anything.
Right. And you're vigilant kind of across websites and as a matter of course, or you've done the blanket situation, which I'm sure is not a true blanket. I bet it's got some holes in it. That's just me thinking.
It has massive holes.
Okay.
Because every time you agree, like every time you click I agree to something, you subvert that initial setting. So even if you say, I don't want cookies from iPhones, but you go on a website and you say, yeah, I agree I consent to cookies because I'm covered by my iPhone.
Right.
That you have subverted, you have signaled to the system that you're okay with cookies on this website.
Interesting. Ooh. Okay. But like you said, I think the takeaway is look, this is the world we live in now. This type of information is out there. It shapes what we do. We just need to be aware of it and not be shocked, when we're getting all of the ads that we do. And just, understanding how the system is working on us, I think is worthy of conversation. So.
Right. And as a website owner, business, personal, blog, whatever, you have a responsibility to, one, know what you're doing. Because I will say most business owners who don't understand why they need a data privacy policy don't know what they're doing with the information. They have no idea. Where it's like magic. You enter the information and here it goes over there to that place and I get to email you because you said I could email you. It's magic to them. And it's not until they start running ads. So in order to run ads to your website, you have to have an active privacy policy on your website because Meta is looking for that kind of information. Or if you're going to SMS text someone, you have to have that kind of information on your site, or you can't get your phone approved to run two-way SMS texting. So there are lots of reasons as a business owner just to know what you're doing. And I know you and I had this experience as we were filling out your Termageddon paperwork. Like, oh, what am I going to do with that information? Am I collecting that information? I didn't even think about that. Like, and that's what I love about the questionnaire is it highlights some places where you're like, oh yeah, I am asking for
private information,
something from them.
And what am I going to
Yeah.
do with it? And how does it get to a place where I can then use it again? Where else is it going before then? I think that we need to remind ourselves, as anyone with a website too, that's doing business online, which is, the world now, that we have an obligation, we have a responsibility to do it responsibly. And I know that the legal bird seed, I mean, there's so many jokes on the terms and conditions and legal fine print, but it is there for a reason, and it gets overlooked because it's not the fun side of running a business, but it is so important. And the good news is that there are these tools now, like you're saying, with the Termageddons of the world, that make it so easy, that do the work for you. Yes, it's brutal getting through that questionnaire. I will say that was long, but it does educate you at the same time. So if someone says to you at a cocktail party, do you have a privacy policy, or how are you using your people's information? You better be able to respond in a coherent way because you've thought about it and you've actively chosen what you're going to do with that information. You owe it to your customers, I think, to do that, especially in a world where it is now so easy and you don't have to update it every year. You said 51. Okay, so 50 states plus DC plus internationally. That's a lot of laws to have to comply with if you're selling globally. And it's done for you. And then I'll get off my soapbox in a second. But these are not only state laws, but federal laws. And there are penalties, real life consequences if you're not doing what you should be doing and you get nabbed, How embarrassing. And that can shut down a business. So it's kind of like, in my opinion, the importance of, if you're going to incorporate into, or have an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever, it's not that exciting to create the operating agreement and the minutes and the da-da-da. But it is so important to the protection of your business, just like this is. So thank you so much for clarifying all this stuff. Now let's you and I both go Google why it's called cookies. But I really think this is super helpful information to folks and digestible and in a way that we can all understand. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks so much. Remember, life is legal, so you got to know the rules. We'll see you next time.